Over the last 10 years, there has been a huge increase of economically disadvantaged students. To be exact, 59.1% of students are considered to be disadvantaged. Many teachers agree that poverty has a direct impact on the performance of students, regardless of race. However, most high-poverty schools are made up of 80% of minorities. In these schools, we see how poverty affects the students' lives, and unprepared teachers create low expectations for them, leading to low academic achievement. In 2008, there were 16,122 high-poverty schools in the U.S. These schools are composed of 76% to 100% of students receiving free or reduced price lunches. 97% of these schools receive Title I funding. Title I is a supplemental fund to assist on satisfying educational needs of at-risk students. On these schools, graduation rates are 68% compared to 91% of low-poverty schools. High-poverty schools are made up of 47% of Hispanics and 40% blacks. Whites make up only 7% of student population. There has been an increase of white and African American students who are considered economically disadvantaged. There's also a higher percentage of blacks on high-poverty schools. Approaches for success from high-performing, high-poverty schools: building relationships with students, giving pride and recognition to students, staff commitment, focusing on high expectations for all, creating democratic environments, collaborative environments, redefining relationships with districts, seeking relationships with outside entities, pay attention to individual students, structure programs to support students, extending the school day for academic support, expanding academic opportunities, and helping students transition through schools.
It's time for Ask Ignacio.
Ask Ignacio. Ask Ignacio. Ask Ignacio. Ask Ignacio.
That question sort of goes both ways. It depends on a lot of factors, but I feel that schools in low-income, impoverished places, they don't really have the resources necessary to compete with a private school in upstate Texas. Or say a school in the Valley doesn't have the resources to compete with a school in upstate Austin. It depends basically on the curriculum and how rigorous it is. I know in my school, we really didn't have a variety of AP or dual enrollment courses that could prepare students for the type of college or the type of curriculum here at UT. So I feel that I was sort of maybe deprived in a way, but that shouldn't really hold a person back. If a student has the potential to exceed beyond their low expectations back home, it shouldn't really matter about their experiences here in college, because if they have the drive, if they have the potential, they can ultimately achieve their aspirations anywhere.
Over 85% of surveyed teachers say a student's socioeconomic background is a direct correlation to their academic performance in school. Those who are less financially stable tend to do worse in school and on standardized tests. However, with all the funding and programs provided to Title I schools, this should not be the case. Says a teacher of a Texas high school from an anonymous survey, parental involvement is extremely important. Students with low income status tend to have less support at home. If students had as much support outside the classroom as they did inside, maybe they would perform better academically. Programs such as Community in Schools, or CIS, are designed to not only help students with schoolwork and getting supplies, but also to help parents find jobs and become more involved in their children's lives. During the 2010-2011 school year, according to TEA statistics, 2,914,916 students were classified as economically disadvantaged. That makes more than half the students in Texas public schools. Since the year 2000, the number of economically disadvantaged students has increased by 10% in Texas public schools. Here is a graph of the change of enrollment for the regions of Texas between 2000 and 2011. 5 of the 20 regions' enrollment rate decreased. However, all 20 regions' economically disadvantaged student percentage increased. So with all these Title I schools and economically disadvantaged students, what is our state doing to ensure that these socioeconomic backgrounds are not placing negative effects on students in schools?
Well, coming from the Rio Grande Valley, it's definitely a low economic and socially impoverished region of Texas, and our school implemented several programs such as the reduced lunch fee, where all students in their school didn't have to pay for lunch. I think it was very pivotal because in my school I knew of certain people who came to school and ate breakfast and lunch there, and that were their only meals during the day. So those are some programs, along with some extra tutoring after school, that provided students with free laptops, free computers to take home to get their work done. So all those definitely, in my opinion, shaped students to sort of gain and garner a better acknowledgement of their education for success.
That's good. So you do think those programs help them?
Yes.
Definitely. Okay. The Texas High School Project, or THSP, and CIS, Community in Schools, are a few. If more programs like these are created, student academic performance will not only increase, but their standardized test scores will increase as well.
Standardized testing has been an issue for some time now. Of the almost 80 teachers surveyed, about 70% said they feel they are teaching to the test. 76.9% said they feel critical parts of the curriculum are left out because it is not part of the test. In Barrier's article, she says teachers are forced to abandon all things unrelated to the test and consequently lose sight of what is important, the whole child. In the Buck, Ritter, Jensen, and Rose article, they quote teachers in Arkansas saying that the tests help set teaching plans for the year and let teachers collaborate more. We decided to ask Ignacio's opinion on the tests students had to take.
The TAKS test, like any other standardized state test, tests a student's knowledge to a certain capacity. The TAKS test in general tests a student's knowledge to know a certain minimum requirements of things to know. However, if you say the TAKS test isn't up to par, well, what really is the level that students need to get at? Because as you can see with the TAKS test, a lot of students fail that test. So it's really a question about the student's ability to learn and the teacher's ability to teach. So if you're going to say that the TAKS test does a poor job of doing that and covering that minimum knowledge, then it should just go back and revert back to the teaching methods that the state has on teachers in regards to how far students should learn or what a student should learn.
When it came to SAT and ACT testing, teachers and students had different feelings.
Some believe SAT and ACT cannot determine a student's intelligence. Others believe it is the only way to test a whole group of students coming from different backgrounds. According to College Board, students in the bottom economic quartile scored 300 points lower than students in the top economic quartile, which means more wealthy students have more chance in enrolling in top U.S. colleges at a rate of 25% to 1, compared with students from lower socioeconomic background. Why is that? Wealthier students may receive professional test preparation. They come from a superior environment that's more motivated. Another question that people have is whether SAT is culturally and racially biased. The test favors students from English-speaking homes. While students may be fluent in English themselves, they may come from households where English is not the dominant language. In a study of 4 University of California institutions reported that blacks and Mexicans are clearly not benefited by the use of SAT in selection of college students. In every instance, far fewer black and Mexican students would be selected when SAT is used than when it's not used. Use of the SAT at the 4 universities would make inadmissible 12 to 15% of the Mexicans and 14 to 43% of the black applicants who would have been admitted on the basis of high school GPA. For our research, we have surveyed 78 highly experienced teachers throughout the different schools in Texas. Among the 78 teachers, 79.5% believes measuring a student's intelligence by a standardized test is not fair. 57.7% of them believe SAT/ACT should not be a deciding factor when it comes to getting into a higher institution for higher education.
I know with the amount of applications that colleges get, they use SAT scores and ACT scores as sort of a blunt factor to decide who gets in or who meets the criteria to move on to the next step. However, it shouldn't be the only way a student can be acknowledged by a school, because a student's background can influence what they score in the ACT or SAT. If they come from a minority group, or if they have, if they're one of those people who are English as a second language learners, it's definitely sort of hesitant for them to learn the language and test on it. So it's definitely a factor that holds them back, but they ultimately have the potential to go to Ivy League schools, to go to prestigious schools. They can be able to compete with the best of the best in the nation. Just one test doesn't qualify someone to go to a certain school. Just one test doesn't define someone and measure their intelligence. So it shouldn't be the only deciding factor.
I've asked students around the campus about how can College Board improve SAT in order to make the test equal for everyone. Most students felt that the SAT is more of a strategy-based exam and not what they have learned in high school. They believe that tests should be more of what they learned in high school rather than strategies. Others think it's hard to make a test equal for everyone when everyone is at different intellectual levels, and therefore SAT should not be the only deciding factor when it comes to scholarships, grants, and college admissions.
Socioeconomic status affects a student's success in school. It correlates to their performance on standardized tests, which, in turn, affect their college admissions.